because when we look at this age group, these are consumers, and I think, as you've indicated, we live in a consumer culture, and that everybody would like to have a Buick and et cetera. But yet and still, it seems that opportunities are denied many young people. What impact does that have as a psychologist upon?
Well, see, the economic, culture of America, whole economy is shifting in general. I think this movie that Michael Douglas recently starred in called Falling Down, I went to see it. It wasn't a terribly good movie, but I mean, Newsweek did a cover a couple of weeks later saying something like white male paranoia. I think that there's a perception among many people in white America, probably best reflected in people like Rush Limbaugh, that blacks, are getting too much. I think because we see Michael Jordan saying, you better eat your Wheaties, and Eddie Murphy making $1 million, and Michael Jackson running around in fantasy land, that black males are okay. The fact of the matter is that the American economy is shifting, and usually when economies begin to shrink, somebody gets scapegoated. I think in this culture, we're seeing the scapegoating of blacks in this culture. When we hold up canards such as affirmative action, women are being scapegoated a great deal right now. This book called Backlash by Susan Faludi talks about how women are being blamed for some of the ills of our society, from a variety of the disintegration of the family. So I think that the society is shifting in general, and I think we're at a very dangerous point in our society right now when we don't really look at the realities of the economic situation, how we are part of a global economy.
Well, now, I think President Clinton at present is discussing some prospects of introducing summer jobs and et cetera. And what do you think that would do, or what impact do you think that would have upon some of the problems that we are faced with?
Well, I'm not going to minimize it, but I think it's a Band-Aid solution in a bleeding ulcer. I think that it helps. I would never, if somebody said, would you rather have a summer jobs program, would you not? Of course I would take it. But I think that, after the summer is over, we need some fall jobs programs as well. And we need a better educational system, for young blacks in this culture, as well as with, Hispanic young people. I think that we have to create systems that affirm the identity of what black males are all about, as well as black children in general, rather than to deny it or just try to tear it down. And I think that all of those things go into the mix. I was told I'm always amazed when I get in groups of black professionals, when I ask the question, well, how many of you were told that you weren't going to be successful? Nearly all of those black professionals, doctors, lawyers, teachers, will raise their hand. I was told when I was in the 10th grade that I should not go to college. And so I think that we see all of these things. I think we have to have a system that gives more positive feedback to our young people.
Now, I think you mentioned the system of education, and we've not had an opportunity to talk about dropouts, because I think in trying to achieve, many people look at higher education as the ultimate achievement in terms of education. But too many of these young people don't have an opportunity to make it to higher education, and that's because of the dropout problem.
Sure.
Now, what impact has dropout on this group of folks?
Well, actually, let's look at, again, some numbers. If you look at SAT scores among urban blacks, they have actually increased over the past 10 years. For whites, it has actually stayed stable. In some cases, it's actually gone down. That's good news. I think also, what is good news is that the dropout rate seemingly in urban areas in the United States are beginning to decrease. It has always kind of stayed the same in rural areas, and I think it's for work problems, work-related issues and so forth. So I think there's good and bad news. I think the issue is that when these black young people get out of prison, get out of, that's a Freudian slip, get out of high school, they need jobs to go to. Detroit, for example, has a 64% unemployment rate among black teenagers. I think those are the things that are needed. We need jobs training program, but we need jobs for these kids to be able to go to when they get out of school. And that's the thing that's needed.
We've got about 5 minutes,
Sure.
Dr. Winbush, before we end this program for today. Are there some other areas that perhaps you would like to speak to dealing with this as an issue, or perhaps to re-emphasize some of the things that we've already talked about?
Well, I think that one thing that all of us should do, at an intellectual or purely academic level, I think we should read more about the state of black America, and particularly the history of black people. I'm again amazed at how much we don't know. We think we know a lot, but how much we don't know about the history of African American men in this country. And it's more than just who invented what and who was the first to get to the North Pole or South Pole or whatever, but those other things that are very, very critical to understanding how we got to the state that we're in. I also think that we need to stop listening to some, popular pundits who seem to perpetuate stereotypes that may not be true. For example, we mentioned the issue about drugs in this country. If I were to target a drug treatment program right now, I would probably get suburban housewives who are on alcoholism, who are making a lot of money, or their husbands are in many cases. I think those are some of the most at-risk people in our culture. Surely black males are at risk, but I think that we have to we don't want to, perpetuate the stereotype that these are the most dangerous people in our culture. These are the people who are going to kill you in a dark alley at night. There's other peoples who are probably even more dangerous than that in our society.
Very good. And of course, Dr. Winbush, looking at all of these issues and looking at some of the proposed solutions, what do you think our national leaders are? Can you identify any persons who might be identified as national leaders? What ought their responsibility to be to bring this to the attention of people nationwide?
Yeah. Well, I always resist talking about who, national black leaders are. I mean, probably on those lists would be people like Jesse Jackson, whomever. I think that leadership takes place. I always tell young black people, you got to look in the mirror for who your leader is. And I really believe that too. I think that I think enough has been said. We started, maybe we've come full circle. I think that we know what the problems are right now among black, males in this society. I would probably say that the three things that if I could tell people, which I have, it would be education, education, education.
There's nothing more important than education.
Not as far as I'm concerned, no.
And of course, as the director of the Vanderbilt Black Johnson Cultural Center, you are doing everything that you can within where you are to try to make sure that people have a better understanding of this issue as we have here today.
I try to educate myself as well as people who come there, about the issues relative to African American culture and life.
And what is, when you look at the education institutions, not necessarily Vanderbilt or any particular educational institution, but what ought educational institutions do in order to try to, over the last couple of minutes that we have, in order to try to at least deal with this as an issue, if it is educate, educate, educate?
Well, the whole purpose of education in American society is to, perpetuate, quote, good citizenship. Unfortunately, we've only seen educational systems that do that primarily for white Americans. I mean, the curricula of most schools in our country are like self-esteem curricula for whites. I think that we need to have more self-esteem curriculum for African Americans as well. There's a congratulatory way that history is presented in this culture. It's saying that everything that was good is white, everything that is bad is of color. And I don't think that's true. And I think that I have seen young black people, when you start teaching them about who really came over here with Christopher Columbus, what actually occurred, some of the works of Denmark Vesey and some of the people I'm sure that you know about, that their eyes brighten up. They want to hear more. And I think that that insatiable history that all children have needs to be taught more to young people in our public school systems.
Very good. And Dr. Winbush, let me thank you, the audience, for coming by and giving us that very, very important information today. And let me encourage you to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.